Today we would like to welcome you to the next episode of our podcast, You
And I, Ukrainian New Identity.
With this podcast, we will help you
And us.
to reinvent Ukrainian culture, history and traditions.
And to see the history through the eyes of ordinary Ukrainians.
We will also highlight differences and similarities between Ukrainian and British cultures. My name is Jes. I was born in Kyiv and I've been living in the UK for the last 20 years.
And my name is Maria Kush and I'm a refugee from Sumy. So today's topic really interesting. Is Ukrainian mean person or not?
Wow. That is a shocking question. I don't really know what you mean by that.
You know this Slavic Stare? It's just a relaxed face of a normal Ukrainian person. Have you noticed that, or you just...
I think if I noticed it, I forgot about this, living in the UK for that long. I don't think people are born mean or happy. I think we go through various stages, and in the course of every day, we experience all sorts of emotions which we show on our faces or not. For example, as we talked and discussed it before, in Britain, if you say, "How are you today?" the answer will be, "I'm fine, thank you," and people move on. So it's a bit of sort of, you're happy all the time, or you're okay all the time, but actually you're just not letting people in. So you can have lots of troubles, but you wouldn't share with the first person you meet in the street. Well, poker face, you will smile, but then maybe with a few close friends you will actually share, but that will be behind closed doors.
And what you will share? Like in Ukraine, when you share with someone like, "How are you?" and they become like, "I'm so sad, I don't have this, I don't have money, I'm so ill," and another person will say, "No, I have worse, and this is it, like in my case, it's such a thing," and it's like a...
No, my case is worse.
Yeah. And so on and so on. And it's interesting because first what's coming to my mind, why people could have this kind of Slavic stare, it's just about probably some roots from the childhood. Let's compare how your child memories and mine, because we are almost from the same period of time and from the same country, compared to the picture what, for example, UK kids can see or can have a view during their childhood.
Okay, right. Are we playing the game whose life was worse as a child? British kids or Ukrainian kids?
I don't know. I just feel like, we always talk about positive things in Ukrainian mentality.
Positive?
Yeah, positive thing. Like, we are strong. We are...
Well, I mean, like it's now in the times of war, I guess. In the times of war, if you look at history of this country, I'm talking about the UK, I'm jumping to absolutely another topic, which is music. But music is often expression of feelings. So the music here was very happy. During the Second World War, it was very happy, motivating. It's going to be fine. We will win the war. Everything will be okay. Look at our music. Our music is not so happy nowadays. Everything is about war, of course, about lost brothers, husbands, and so on, fathers. And of course, we need to tell other people and ourselves, most of all, we are strong. We will make it through, and so on. I think it's part of the wartime. It's the motivation we need. That's why we are not talking about how many soldiers were lost in Ukraine. We are not giving actual numbers. We are not talking about things which will make us sad or depressed. We are talking about the positives. We took over. We moved 1 meter or 2 meters forward, so moved the front line and so on.
I think it's really important to cover different sides of identity, because without it, it becomes kind of 2D model of the identity, not full scale normal person identity or nation identity. And from my point of view, I can definitely tell from my experience, from myself, I easily get depressed. I easily become this annoying discussion. What's in my life is not going in the way that I want, where I have my, I don't know, some stomach ache, some headache, some, you know.
It's interesting you're saying this. I haven't heard you talking to me about that. So, which means that with different people, depending on their closeness or the amount of time you spend together or the level of trust, you cover different sides of your identity, which is, I think, fine. You're protecting yourself from misunderstanding of the people who don't know, so you don't share too much with them. But then with other people, you can be open. You can be, as you call yourself, and cover this side of identity.
I don't know, it's not about myself, it's about the way how I cope with some kind of difficult situation. And I think it was something what probably my social teach me how to survive through kind of like a new environment, for example. You can find someone to wine with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will talk from my point of view, because I know that it's not, couldn't be all of the Ukrainians, but some part, maybe even half of the Ukrainians have this in their life, like they talk about other people behind their back, they like, you know, try to compete not in a good way. So there's a lot of things which probably could be with other nations. It's not about nation, it's about maybe just the personality. But in our, I don't know, mentality, it becomes kind of necessary.
I wanted to use a bad word to say bitchy competition. Please
Yes.
cut it out.
Why? But this is true. It's bitchy competition.
There is. I know, because I was trying to understand what you are getting to.
Yeah.
And this I agree with. You know, before that, in the beginning of conversations, said no, but now I do agree with what you're saying, because I can see between quite a lot of Ukrainian refugees, and most of them are women, of course, who moved to the area where I live.
Mm-hmm.
When we announce something, let's organize an event,
Yeah.
instead of coming and saying, okay, let's do it together. Let's raise funds and send them anywhere
Yeah.
to Ukraine, for example, if it's a fundraising event. Just help people. It's always, no, I'm going to do my thing, so I raise funds and I send to support my husband, my brother, my son, which is understandable. They want to support them. But then there is no, you want to be
Gathering
united,
together,
yeah. And it feels like everyone competes with everyone for a piece of something,
Yeah, and
which is upsetting and disappointing. I agree with you.
yeah, but it's also kind of linked to the feeling that even in such a difficult situation like we are now as a Ukrainians, far away like a refugee, far away from home, trying to support your country, you still have found the enemy inside your community. Look what happened with the comments section somewhere, like some, you know.
Do you think it goes back to Soviet times when people, your closest neighbor, could report you for having
But
a
in
bit
UK
more? Shall we find out what happened
Yeah.
in Soviet times and how it could have affected the mentality of Ukrainians?
In the Soviet Union, the idea of the enemy was not distant, it was close. It could be your neighbor, your colleague, even your own family. From the early 1920s, the state began shaping how people saw each other. In 1922, the Pioneer Organization was created, and by 1925, hundreds of thousands of children in Soviet Ukraine had joined. They were taught not only loyalty, but vigilance. By the early 1930s, during collectivization and famine, this vigilance turned inward. Pioneer newspapers between 1930 and 1934 praised children who reported neighbors for hiding grain. Some reported their own parents. Informing was reframed as courage. On 12 June 1934, the Komsomol officially rewarded children who exposed enemies of the people. At the same time, Joseph Stalin promoted the idea that the closer society moved towards communism, the more enemies would appear from within. Suspicion became normal. Trust became dangerous. Children grew up with stories like Pavlik Morozov, a boy celebrated for denouncing his own father. Loyalty to the state was placed above loyalty to family, above friendship, above empathy. Meanwhile, the NKVD built vast networks of informants. Denunciations were driven by fear, but also by opportunity, better housing, career advantages, or personal revenge. During the Great Terror of 1937-1938, this system reached its peak. Society became a web of mutual surveillance where anyone could be watching and anyone could betray. Over time, this shaped behavior. People learned to divide the world into us and them, to stay close to the group for safety, to distrust those who stood out, to judge, to whisper, to discuss others, but only in private. Phrases like "a stranger among your own" or "one man alone cannot fight" reflect more than language. They reflect survival. In Ukraine, these patterns did not simply disappear. They became inherited. A quiet instinct to be cautious, to blend in, to protect yourself by staying with the majority. Because for generations, being different was not just difficult, it was dangerous.
Yeah, it looked like it could be one of the reasons, but not the main. That my feeling, honestly, just because, like, in UK there's also kind of culture where if someone do something wrong in the wrong way, someone will call to police. Like, once I parked my car not in the right place, so my neighbor, oh my god, saw it and called me and said, like, I will report about you to your agency if you will not park in the right spot, something like that. And it's like they always notice this
That
stuff.
sounds more like German society rather than British one. Okay.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's something which, it grows with the culture, but the way how you produce it in your life, it's kind of something which you can go as a flow, as a river, or you can choose something in other direction.
You lost me here.
Okay, so
Where are we getting to?
I'm right now on a stage where I realize that I spotted a lot of negativity from Ukrainians to Ukrainians, and it gives me such a big pain that I'm coming to the stage where I don't want to be Ukrainian. I feel depressed just because I realize that everything what I try to implement in my life, everything about culture, history, tradition, gathering together, understand what we are globally in the world, it just not fit to the society.
Can I reassure you that you're not the only one? When I moved to the UK many, many years ago, as you know, more than 20 years ago, I was just newly married, then I had a baby, and all the friends whom I had were Russian speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So because you would go with your baby on the playground, I spoke, my mother tongue is Russian, so I spoke in Russian, and then someone would come, oh, you speak Russian, and so you become friends with another family who's Russian speaking. And so you stayed together, and we had Ukrainians, Latvians, Lithuanians, Russians, so we had this community. And at some point, after maybe the same time as you, 3 years, I started feeling depressed because I didn't really enjoy being with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I understood that I chose them because of language. But if I was in Ukraine, I wouldn't be friends with them. So then I stopped being friends with people because they speak the same language. Because you wouldn't be friends with every single person in Ukraine who speaks your language. So that's normal because it's just, you need to open yourself. My best friends are British people, and as I said, 70, 80 years old. They are the people who understand me. We share the same beliefs. We enjoy time together.
Yeah, I just, try to digest information what I receive as a feedback from the people, and trying to understand what I want to have from the meaning what I try to describe right now. So I realized that one of the parts of Ukrainian identity is the ability to share the pain with other people, not only in a way of helping each other, but also in a way to put each other down. I don't know how to explain it easily. So do I want to keep it, or do I want to kind of change it in my mind, or do I want to stay in this particular society, or do I want to change it? I don't know. I just feel like this is something would describe us a lot.
In Ukrainian culture, certain habits and beliefs can seem paradoxical at first. People may say something negative while meaning something positive. A newborn baby might be called not very beautiful, precisely because they are. It is a way to protect them from the evil eye. This idea, known as the evil eye, comes from much older, pre-Christian beliefs. In ancient pagan traditions, it was thought that words, thoughts, even admiration could carry power and sometimes harm. Envy, even unintentional, could bring illness, bad luck, or misfortune. So people learned to be careful, not to speak too openly about happiness, not to share plans too early, not to celebrate success too loudly. Over time, these behaviors became more than superstition. They became habit. Psychology offers another way to understand this. Negative expressions, sarcasm, even criticism can act as defense mechanisms, ways to reduce anxiety, to create emotional distance, to protect oneself from vulnerability. By saying less, or by saying the opposite, a person feels safer, more in control. What began as a belief in unseen forces gradually turned into a form of psychological self-protection. A quiet instinct, not to attract too much attention, not to reveal too much joy, and not to risk losing what you have by speaking it out loud.
And us, I mean all Ukrainians, because we are mostly people who, probably because of our history, we have a lot of trauma and troubles during our family's history. But do we need to keep this in the same level? Or do we need to change it and change this kind of, pattern of connection and founding someone, like someone who's my enemy from this small town, small place. I don't know how to explain it. It's like it's your choice. You can speak with someone, you can be friend with someone, but you don't need to be as an enemy with someone with whom you don't like to speak.
You don't, and don't be. Just make your choices not based on nationality and languages. Be with the people you are comfortable with. And also, as you say, the way of putting, like when we share negative news about ourselves, is sort of putting others down. It happens in this country as well, maybe not at that level, or you need to be quite close to the people to experience this.
How to politely tell someone off, the British way. We don't yell. We're far too polite for that. Instead, we turn it into a fine art. First, we butter them up. Oh, you're usually so brilliant, aren't you? Now they're relaxed, they're smiling, and that's when you strike. But today, somewhat of a disaster, wouldn't you say? They're confused, they're reeling. Did you just insult them? Absolutely. Then the final blow. No worries though, we'll just pretend it never happened. But maybe, let's not do that again. And just like that, you've obliterated them without raising your voice. Now that's what I call polite devastation.
But I think it's, and I know it is, inability to listen and understanding how to reflect and feedback when someone is sharing with us. Because as you know, in schools, not in Ukraine, not in Britain, we don't have we don't have classes on how to listen, how to be attentive listener. And quite often when someone, in the past I thought, if someone tells me something bad that happened to them, and I say, well, I don't understand you, because in my life the same thing happened but 10 times worse. I thought that would make a person feel better, he or she is not alone, I'm sharing the understanding, I've been in the same sport and so on. But actually it makes them feel my problems have been dismissed, they're not important, but then you don't understand being on the other side of the spectrum, and if you don't look into it. So I think, and that's the missing part of education, not just in Ukraine, but in the UK, is learning to listen to the people, and not just the words, the emotions, and what people want to tell you, and what to say to make them feel better, to help them open, to help them with their mental state at the moment.
For years, Finland has been ranked the happiest country in the world. According to the World Happiness Report, published by the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Finland held the #1 position 6 years in a row, from 2018 to 2023. So what's behind this consistency? One key factor is education. Finnish schools don't just focus on academic performance, they actively develop emotional intelligence. Children learn how to manage their emotions, cope with stress, work together, and resolve conflicts. And this isn't taught as a separate subject, it's built into the system. Programs like Kiva teach children to recognize emotions and support each other. There are also life skills lessons, where students discuss mental health and everyday challenges. And schools provide constant support, with psychologists and trained teachers who pay close attention to students' well-being. The result? Children who feel safe, supported, and grow into adults who are not just successful, but genuinely satisfied with their lives.
Yeah, by the way, about mental state, it's just a really hot topic, I would say, because all of us trying to keep up with the life, I would say like that, trying to survive, and I think probably all people who have this now as a war situation, they probably in the same stage where you're trying to work normally, you're trying to be in a family or with a friend normally, but actually somewhere on the background you feel completely destroyed. And all of my friends now have, and me also, have antidepressant therapy, just because we need to survive somehow. We lost this ability, like in 19th century, to have part of the, you know, how it's called, when you have funeral with your
Bereavement period.
yeah, without doing anything and everybody accepted. Like you just turn to black and just not talk to anyone and just give yourself time to, because when I came to UK, I started working straight away, and I didn't have my kind of like time of reflection to understand how I feel. I just work hard. I think it's like all of us, and also this burnout, what happens to people, just because it's not 1 year, it's not 2 years, it's more than 4 years, and I just I feel like probably like with this AI stuff we will have a lot of new jobs titles, so we need to find title for people who struggle with the war situation, not refugee.
Well,
it's something else.
The trouble is many people who came from the war zone, and not just them, experience complex PTSD, which means that they're triggered all the time into flashbacks and difficult emotions they're going through. They see danger everywhere, and the worse they feel emotionally, the more they're sort of on the watch out for things that will go wrong. So they get really tired, they get really exhausted, they're always alert, their nervous system is overworking, and it can be, there are quite a lot of people who struggle with PTSD, and nowadays, of course, in Ukraine, there are, most veterans will or are already experiencing signs of PTSD, but it's the same for civilians and people who haven't been traumatized physically. They can go through a very tough time as well, which makes the life so much more exhausting and difficult. They're constantly tired because they're constantly expecting something horrible to happen to them, even though they are in the safety of the UK, right? So I think a bit of understanding of what PTSD is and difference between complex and simple PTSD might be useful for us. And then I'll share one interesting and useful technique with you how to help yourself, okay?
Okay.
Simple post-traumatic stress disorder versus complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, can take different forms depending on what a person has lived through. The most widely recognized form is simple PTSD. This often follows a single traumatic event, such as an explosion, an attack, or a sudden loss. As a result, survivors may experience flashbacks, nightmares, and strong reactions to situations that others may see as minor or harmless. But when trauma is prolonged, when one trauma builds on top of another, something different can develop. This is known as complex PTSD. It can grow from repeated experiences of trauma, for example, childhood trauma followed by further traumatic experiences in teenage years or adulthood. Complex PTSD is linked to long-term stress, where the threat does not simply end. People living with complex PTSD often have a nervous system that remains on constant alert. They may feel as though danger is always near. They can have many triggers that bring back flashbacks, nightmares, and sometimes even hallucinations. The symptoms of simple PTSD and complex PTSD can appear similar, but people with complex PTSD are often triggered more frequently. They may begin to see danger everywhere, which can lead to emotional exhaustion, a deep sense of helplessness, and difficulty connecting with others. Many begin to withdraw from social contact altogether. In the context of Ukraine, this distinction matters. For those still living inside the country, the trauma is often ongoing. Air raid sirens, uncertainty, and repeated stress over time. As a result, many people are dealing not just with isolated trauma, but with continuous psychological strain, something closer to complex PTSD.
For those who have left the country, the situation is not necessarily easier. Alongside trauma, there is displacement, separation from home, worry for loved ones, and sometimes a deep sense of guilt. What's important to understand is that these reactions are not signs of weakness. They are natural responses, sometimes extreme, but still natural, to extreme and prolonged stress and the constant fear for life. And while experiences may differ, they all reflect the same underlying reality: how the human mind tries to cope when the world no longer feels safe.
So, do you think it was helpful?
Yeah, I think it's we need to educate ourselves and our families and friends about mental health and normalize it in a way that this is part of our life, and we need to, it's in my mind it's still kind of like a freak thing.
Stigma, yeah. So there is stigma against it, and when I was a teenager, I had, I lost my sister, and I had a lot PTSD, and I found difficult to cope with that. So I volunteered to go to the hospital to seek for help, and my parents didn't understand this. They just couldn't get themselves to see it as part of normal healing process. And it's been many years since, and I really want that one day we wouldn't just go for injections every now and then to do blood tests, to do checkup, but we would also go regularly to do checkup on our mental health, to speak, to be heard, and we'll teach our children to be good listeners. But then, as you know, I work as an interpreter as well as a teacher, and my specialty is interpreting in mental hospitals and mental facilities. So I do hear a lot of interesting tools, which are quite graphic, quite simple, and can probably help us to cope with those difficult moments in life which we're experiencing, like depression or whatever. So one of them is called stress bucket. Do you want to find out about this? Okay.
Imagine you have a bucket inside you, and everything that stresses you slowly fills it up. Work, relationships, worries, even small daily pressures, they all add to the level inside that bucket. The more it fills, the more overwhelmed you begin to feel. And when it overflows, that's when stress turns into anxiety, burnout, or emotional reactions you can't quite control. But there's another part to the model, a tap at the bottom. This represents the ways you cope. Things like rest, support, exercise, or simply taking time for yourself. These help release the pressure and stop the bucket from overflowing. There's also something called a resource bucket, the positive things in your life that help you stay resilient. Because managing stress isn't about avoiding it completely, it's about keeping your bucket balanced.
Right, so as you can see from the explanation, I think it's a very useful tool when you understand that if you have more hobbies, then you open little taps at the bottom of your bucket and get the negative emotions and stress out, and your bucket doesn't overflow. So you don't have a big drama. Nothing horrible happens to you. So you release. I often think, I don't have time for hobbies. I remember giving a speech some time ago, and I said, well, I used to have lots of hobbies. I loved baking, I loved drawing, this and this. Now my only hobby in life is helping Ukraine. Nothing else. And then I started thinking, why am I feeling so stressed? Okay, I need to start opening those taps and release. Going for a walk, weird me talking to trees, stroking a cat, reading a book. Just see it as something you must have and tell your family, I'm really sorry, but I need this time for myself. It's 10 minutes. Close the door, no entry, and that's it. Keep them away.
Yeah, it's good. And I think if we will try to speak up to our friends and family, to give them to know how you feel, not in a toxic way, I would say, and always give a chance to people, okay, you don't like me, it's fine. And something like, I'm on a process. I don't know exactly how and what it will be, but I'm on a process to understand that that's okay. It's normal to feel like this, and to give opportunity and freedom to other people to feel other way and to express themselves other way. So just want to start this talk, and maybe someday we will found new reasons, new sense, and something which will give us healing.
Yeah, I hope so. But it's interesting that you said being able to talk to a family in an intoxic way about how you feel. In my opinion, even if you learn to do this, not always you get the reaction you need to feel better, and sometimes it can be even more disappointing. So I think it's very important for ourselves to learn to give ourselves those strokes or better emotions if we find out that our family cannot support us in those tough moments when we turn to them. Because I had experience when I said to a close person that I'm feeling really unwell, and this person turned away and said, I thought it's better to give you space, and left the room. And I mean, for him, this is what he probably would want. He would want space if he is in this situation. He wants people not to see that he suffers. But I needed someone to hold me, and I got the opposite, and I felt even worse. So since then, I'm not talking about this to him. But we can offer ourselves quite a lot of help. For example, you can create your own imaginary. Do you know what it is? This is when you create image in your head, which gives you positive emotions. It can be really weird. For example, some people imagine that they come to a huge bear and cuddle a bear, and they feel really good, soft fur and really positive emotions. You need to create your own image, which you can generate when you feel really bad. And there has to be image which gives you really positive emotions. For example, my image is lots of little chicks sitting all over my face, and I can feel they're little, newborn chicks, new hatched chicks. They're really soft, and I can hear them beep, 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 all that, and I feel really happy and in a much better state, and I can feel warmth and kindness and love. When I feel overworking, I have in my mind as if I'm on a plane, and the plane starts falling, and you need to put a gas mask, oxygen mask on your face. And so when I feel huge stress, I put an oxygen mask on myself, and I start breathing in forget-me-nots, because forget-me-nots are my favorite flowers, and that makes me feel so much better. So it can be really strange images. So you create your own sort of image in your head. It might not make any sense to other people, but it should be something probably very weird, but will make you feel better, happier, or help you release this stress.
Yeah, and I think we should normalize the help from the specialists, and I think we can listen to one of them now. Maybe she will give us some tips and tricks.
Yes, let's do it.
психіка може ламатися. Так буває, так стається. Але чомусь люди не хочуть допомагати собі. Тому що є стигма, що людина, яка звертається по допомогу з тривогою або з депресією, є стигма, що ти не такий, як треба, якийсь ти не такий. А людям страшно бути не таким, тому що основна потреба, одна з основних потреб – це бути прийнятим. Бути не ок – це нормально, тому що це такі природні реакції на ненормальні події в нашому житті, на шалені зміни або на зміни, під які ми не можемо одразу адаптуватися. І відповідно є період такий, коли люди шукають свої ресурси, коли люди відкривають для себе щось про себе нове, ось коли люди вчаться опиратися на допомогу, допомагати собі. І це те, до речі, без чого, як ти кажеш, не можна побудувати більш сильне, більш здорове суспільство з внутрішньою ідентичністю. Будь-які зміни в нашому житті, вони викликають стрес. І ми так чули, можливо, що є еустрес і дистрес, позитивний стрес і негативний стрес. Коли ми дуже захоплено реагуємо на щось, це теж, по суті, стрес організму. І коли ми маємо якісь негативні зміни, які несуть негативні наслідки в нашому житті, то це такий деструктивний, негативний стрес. І що тоді відбувається? Людина вступає в період адаптації до нових умов, відповідно тих змін, в яких вона опинилася. Це може бути переїзд, втрата роботи, конфлікт з друзями, може бути будь-що, дивлячись ще в якому стані людина. Якщо людина супервтомлена, наприклад, або виснажена, вона дуже вразлива до таких речей. І відповідно цей переломний момент, ця зміна, вона може вимагати більше ресурсу, більше сил для адаптації. Тобто задача людини адаптуватися і продовжити своє життя якнайкраще для себе, враховуючи ті зміни, які відбулися в житті. Що потребує часу, потребує ресурсу. І часто люди вимагають від себе повернутися до того стану, в якому вони були до. Ми розуміємо, що це неможливо ні в часі, ні в подіях. Але люди часто порівнюють своє життя до і після, свої можливості до і після. Вони вимагають загоюватися рани або, такі удари життя дуже швидко, щоб не відчувати їх. І тоді люди чинять опір цим змінам. Але вони вже відбулися. І саме цей опір і вимоги, це приводить до таких страждань додаткових. Тому дуже важливо давати собі час, формувати в собі таку доброзичливість до себе, турботливість, щоб були сили встати і піти далі. Як розпізнати депресію і що для себе можна зробити на початку? Якщо ти бачиш, що ти маєш пригнічений довгий час, проблеми зі сном, або надмірний сон, або не можеш заснути, буває проблема з їжею, переїдання або з втрата ваги, втрата концентрації, не можеш концентруватися на одній діяльності, на такій, як ти зазвичай там робиш. Думки про те, що з тобою щось не так, ти підвела себе або свою родину, думки про те, що було б краще собі нашкодити якимось чином. Якщо це в комплексі все приходить, і такого не було, і я не знаю, як це пояснити, мені потрібна допомога, я хочу піти, запитати, що зі мною, чому я так почуваюся. Скринінги роблять психологи, але діагностику і діагноз ставлять тільки лікарі. І ліки виписують, дозування і нагляд роблять тільки лікарі. Коли людина має такий стан, який ми описали по симптомах, і вона звертається до психіатра, психіатр каже, так виглядає, що ви маєте помірної важкості депресії, чи легку депресію, субклінічну, чи важку депресію, він може призначити лікування або направити психотерапію в певному методі. Зазвичай зараз направляють в КПТ. І тоді що відбувається? В КПТ-терапії людина вчиться справлятися з тими думками, активізувати свої ресурси. Це може відбуватися і на фоні ліків, що допомагає людині стабілізуватися і набрати нові навички самодопомоги. КПТ-терапія вчить людину справлятися з пригнічуючими думками, керувати настроєм, підтримувати свою рутину, підтримувати баланс відпочинку навантаження. Основна ідея терапії, що потім людина може справлятися без ліків і без терапевта. Людина вже знає, має знання і має досвід, має практику звертатися до технік і користуватися ними. Суспільство, людина може справлятися, але суспільство може її отруювати ще далі, якимись звинувачуваннями, неприйняттям і так далі. Але в цілому людину можна навчити, і допомогти їй не залежати від думки суспільства, тому що є певна така, уяви собі, внутрішнє коло, і за колом ще простір. Внутрішнє коло – це та сфера, де ти маєш якийсь вплив ти можеш регулювати щось всередині, ти на це впливаєш. Наприклад, там стиль твого одягу, що ти їсиш, кого ти вибираєш, з ким піти в кіно, там та за колом. Це те, на що ти не можеш впливати. Наприклад, піде дощ чи не піде дощ, так? Якісь політичні рішення, які від тебе не залежать, думки інших, вага інших, я не знаю, поведінка інших. Ну вона не залежить від тебе. І люди мають чітко розрізняти. В психології це називається локус-контроль. Є зовнішній і внутрішній. Так от люди, які живуть зовнішнім локус-контролем, вони, ой, це все вони. Це от якби не така сусідка, я б вже давно там розцвіла, наприклад. Якщо люди чітко опираються на те, що від них залежить, і вони на це впливають, вони відпускають те, на що вони не впливають. Ми ніколи не знаємо, яка буде там реакція інших людей на якісь події в нашому житті або на нас. Це про них. Будь-які речі, які люди говорять і роблять, в першу чергу це про них, це не про нас. Я б хотіла трошки повернутися назад до фіннів, як ти кажеш. Можливо, ти чула про їхню таку напрямок більдунг. Це розвиток суспільства. Вони перші зробили ставку на розвиток суспільства. Вони перші зробили ставку на те, щоб освіта була доступна всім і кожному. І саме людська обізнаність робить дуже міцним суспільством, здоровим. А в здоровому суспільстві легше виростити здорову людину, а навіть якщо з людиною щось трапляється, якась травматизація чи якісь події, чи що, людині набагато легше одужати, зцілитися. Ну і це дуже цікаво, цей підхід. Там виходить, що це так взаємний механізм. Зростає суспільство, зростає людина, зростає суспільство. Так? І здоров'я. Всі хвороби людства через ілюзію відкинутості, ілюзія неприйняття. Тобто ми боїмося, що всі налаштовані проти нас, що ми боїмося бути близькі, але ми потребуємо бути близькими. В цьому великий страх і в цьому велика потреба одночасно. І коли людина може проявляти і приймати любов, отак починається зцілення.
Well, do you feel better now?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's have to be a start, this conversation. I don't know how to describe it in a few words, but I think we begin this journey and maybe someday we will continue it in a more bright, positive way.
Thanks for listening. If you liked our podcast, please like, follow, comment, and have a lovely day. And try smiling more today. Bye.
Bye.